Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So I just watched Birds of Prey. Let's talk about it. So, Birds of Prey, or Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, is directed by Kathy Yan. Now, going into this film, I was very much interested in seeing what they would do with the character of Harley Quinn, because I do think that she was one of the better parts of Suicide Squad. I know I'm not alone in thinking that, because that film was a mess. It was a disaster. So I was definitely interested in seeing where they would take this character after Suicide Squad. And I was particularly interested in seeing where they would take this character, considering that they were going to completely annex Jared Leto's version of the Joker, who, by the way, I didn't hate. Like, I didn't love him, but I also didn't despise him, and I liked his aesthetic, even though a lot of people did not. But anyways, I digress. I was interested in this film going in. I wasn't too impressed by the trailers, honestly. I thought they looked a bit weak. And I definitely feel like the other Birds of Prey never felt like they had much of a presence in the film, and I was very much confused as to why they decided to make a Birds of Prey film before actually giving Harley her own film just surrounding her own character and her origin story. And I have to say that after seeing the film, those thoughts are just confirmed, because it definitely does not feel like a Birds of Prey film to me, and we'll get into exactly why. But first off, this review is going to contain a few spoilers, I think. I don't know how deep I'm going to get into this, because I don't know how deeply I care, but we'll see. They will probably contain spoilers, knowing me. I'm actually going to switch things up and get into the bad first, and then hopefully end on a positive note. And before we get into it, please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Okay, without further ado, let's get into this review. First and foremost is that, like I was mentioning before, this isn't really a Birds of Prey film. This is very much a Harley Quinn film. It's very much revolved around her and her breakup from the Joker, and her discovering that everyone despises her, and the protection that she had when she was with the Joker is no longer. Like, everyone is out to get her for various things that she's done in the past, because she's not the most stellar of characters, even though she's the protagonist of this story. And I really liked that aspect, but I think it was a bit of a mistake for Warner Brothers to jump into a Birds of Prey film before even establishing the rest of the Birds of Prey. And I think the film definitely pays for that mistake, because it tries to rush a lot of exposition surrounding the other characters, when really it knows that it's not really about them. They're kind of just side characters, and we kind of following the story of Harley Quinn, with a few interruptions along the way to discuss Huntress and to discuss the other one, Black Canary, I think, or White Canary, I can't remember her name. I'm not a DC person. I definitely feel like they feel more like interruptions to the main storyline, as opposed to being a part of the main storyline enough to warrant the film being called Birds of Prey. Which, speaking of the film's name, we all know this situation by now, but this film has gone through so many iterations of its name that it's so confusing. I don't even know what to call this video, because it used to be called Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Then it became just Birds of Prey, or maybe it was Birds of Prey before, but now it's Harley Quinn : Birds of Prey. Like, I don't know what this film is called. I think here in the UK it's called Harley Quinn : Birds of Prey, but I'm not sure what it's called at this point. And I think that's part of the problem is that the DNA of this film is so confused that they have no idea what to even call it, because whilst the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn sounds very much in line with the vibe of this film, it's a terrible marketing tactic. I don't know how it translates in other languages even. Like, it was just an awful name, apart from the fact that it does feel very Harley Quinn like. But at the same time, having the film being called Birds of Prey makes no sense, because Harley Quinn is definitely the central focus of the story, and rightfully so, because she's the more popular character, at least for moviegoers, because she was in Suicide Squad, and like I said, one of the best parts of Suicide Squad. So Harley Quinn definitely needed to be in that name somewhere, but they managed to just kind of combine the two and make it Harley Quinn and Birds of Prey. But really, the Birds of Prey, just thematically speaking, don't play a huge role. They're more like Harley Quinn Quinn and the backup dancers, really. So I feel like the confusion surrounding the name is a reflection of the confusion surrounding the film itself. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It says that it wants to be a Birds of Prey film, when really it's a Harley Quinn film with a few backup dancers. And speaking of the backup dancers themselves, I actually really enjoyed them. I actually enjoyed the actress who plays Black Canary's performance. I think she's pretty cool. I can't remember her name. I'll put it here on the screen. I also really enjoyed Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I think she's even better, even though we don't see much of her. I like the quirkiness of her personality, where she's been so isolated from humanity for so long, and she's been so focused on this revenge that she's trying to get for the deaths of her family, for her entire family, that she doesn't really know how to approach people. So she has like these weird quirks where she's kind of inappropriate and kind of, you know, just weird around people. But I feel like that's a really interesting angle to take this character, and I actually really liked Huntress as a result. I think she was kind of a unique type of female character. Aside from the actual performances of the actors, I feel like a lot of the characters in this film were very two-dimensional, and they didn't feel like they had a lot of substance to them whatsoever, including Harley Quinn. A lot of her story was revolved around her trying to get over the Joker, but we don't really get to establish who she is without the Joker. Like, there's never really a point in time where we feel like we know who Harley Quinn is without the Joker. It very much feels like we are only seeing the effects of Harley Quinn being detached from the Joker and not really celebrating who she is as her own character. Speaking of the Joker himself, like I said, I'm not the biggest naysayer when it comes to Jared Leto's iteration of the character. I didn't despise it like a lot of people did, although I understand why they did, and fair enough. But I do think that there is a bit of a Joker-sized hole in this film, because whilst he is constantly referred to and mentioned, you never really get a sense of the weight of this character. I feel like the film very much relies on people's exposure to the character of the Joker in order for you to get a full understanding of how powerful he would be in Gotham. But if you had never heard of him, and if you'd never watched any Batman films or any cartoons or any games, anything of the sort, then you wouldn't really understand why people are making such a big deal about the fact that she's broken up with him. How can you even fully appreciate just how powerful the Joker is in Gotham if you never really see him, you never really hear of what he's up to? And as a result, a lot of the weight that the character holds is kind of lost, and it ends up very confused because we don't know who to respect more, the Joker or Ewan McGregor's character, who, let's get into right now. He is an example of a character, like I said before, who clearly wasn't very well fleshed out just in terms of the writing of the character. Ewan McGregor does a lot to kind of supplement that with his performance. I think a lot of the time it does really work because he works as a kind of character who is somewhat charming, has some likability to him. Like, you can understand how he would own a club and would be able to entertain people, but at the same time he definitely has that maliciousness and just sheer evil to him, just lurking right underneath the skin. Honestly, sometimes not even lurking in the stuff, it's just there. Like, he's evil. He's evil, but he smiles, so it doesn't feel like he's evil. And because he's Ewan McGregor, so you're like, oh, he's not that bad. He's bad. He's awful. He's a terrible, terrible villain. But I don't think he was written well enough to fully establish him as a really powerful villain with quite the presence that it feels like he could have been. I really enjoyed his sidekick, though. I think Chris Messina portrays his sidekick, who's really, again, just fully messed up. I think because this film is R-rated, which we'll get to in a moment, they definitely lean into the more messed up aspects of these characters. Like, they're not great people whatsoever. They're doing horrible things, like peeling people's faces off. It's insane. Chris Messina does a great job of portraying this weird character who's kind of obsessed with his boss, kind of in love with his boss even, perhaps. But at the same time, he's not as dopey as you first think. Like, he's actually much more observant than you would believe. I feel like I'm going back and forth between good and bad here. I'm trying to stay organized, but honestly, this film is just such a mess in my head that I'm having a hard time just keeping it good and bad. What's firmly a problem, definitely a problem when it comes to this film, is the R rating, because I truly do not believe that this film needed an R rating whatsoever. I don't think it needed to be a Birds of Prey film, and I don't think it needed an R rating at all. And in fact, I didn't even know it had an R rating until I was sitting in the cinema and I saw that little warning that said 15. And I was like, what? This is a 15? Why? Why? Nothing in the trailers led me to believe that this would require an R rating. And I think in the final product itself, if you take out a few scenes or leave them to be insinuated rather than actually showing them, like Ewan McGregor's character actually peeling people's faces off, instead of it being so obvious and blatant, it could have just been left to, you know, people's imagination as to what he would do to his victims. This film would easily, comfortably be a 12. And I actually think it would have been beneficial for this film, because then it would have appealed to the teenage girl audience, because I feel like the whole aesthetic of the film definitely does that. It definitely has that kind of punk rocky type teenage girl fun vibe. It plays with a lot of neon colors, and it definitely brings the aesthetic that Suicide Squad started, but kind of customizes it for Harley. And I think it works really well, but I also think that it kind of makes it seem like it skews younger than it actually does. And I don't think that the film ever reaches that balance of being, you know, fun and Harley-like, but at the same time having that really sinister and horrible and disturbing tone to it that would bring it to be a 15 or an R-rated film. And again, there are elements like they drop a few F-bombs, and again, Ewan McGregor's character does some awful things, but if you get rid of that, a lot of it is just PG-13, it's just 12. It doesn't need to be R-rated whatsoever. And I think the character of Harley doesn't need to be an R-rated character at all. In the case of, you know, Logan and Deadpool and Joker, these are characters that really warrant that rating, because the whole themes of their films and the whole aesthetic of the character and the way that the character acts, in the case of Deadpool, like, it's so integral to who they are and to the films that they are in that they warrant that R rating. Whereas in the case of Harley Quinn, it really just did not make sense to me whatsoever. And now that I've crapped all over this film, let's go ahead and talk about some of the positives that I actually enjoyed about it. So firstly, I really did like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. I think she's a fun character. She's not my favorite in the DCU, honestly, but she's fun. She's kind of a cheesecake cute type character, but at the same time has that underlayer of, you know, real pathos and real, you know, sadness and emotion and substance to her. I don't think there's enough of it in this film, honestly, but I think there's definitely a suggestion that there's more going on than meets the eye. And it's not just about the fact that she can fight or the fact that she's powerful. There's also that undercurrent of perhaps regrets of her considering where she could have been had it not been for the Joker. So I like that aspect of the character quite a bit, and I wish it was explored a bit more in this film. And also I enjoyed the other female characters. I liked their portrayals, and I liked the way that they came together as a team, especially at the end. I really enjoyed seeing them work as a team, because for the most part the film once again felt like Harley Quinn and the backup dancers, but when they do come together it is pretty satisfying, so I can say that much at least. Oh, I actually really enjoyed the action sequences in this film. I thought that they were really creative. They did a good job of trying to step away from the average, you know, comic book movie or even blockbuster movie action sequences where everyone feels, sounds, looks like they trained in the same place and they all got a black belt in whatever mixed martial arts is studied by all of these characters. Whereas in the case of Harley, they definitely incorporate her gymnastic, you know, skills in there in these action sequences, as well as her quirkiness and her ability to use whatever is lying around in order to really, you know, kick some ass. So I appreciated that aspect of the film a lot, the fact that they really wanted to highlight that this is a very distinct character with her own distinct aesthetic and fighting style. Speaking of aesthetic, the hair and makeup in this film is pretty cool. You know, Suicide Squad is an Oscar-winning film for hair and makeup, I believe, so it fits that they would carry on the kind of aesthetic of Suicide Squad but kind of customize it for Harley and for the Birds of Prey, and I actually really like that aesthetic, and I think it works really well for this character. And I also appreciate the fact that DC is trying to step away from the kind of homogeny of perhaps the MCU, where everything is starting to look a bit samey. When it comes to the MCU, you have, you know, the space adventures, which are starting to look a bit the same. You know, you have Thor Ragnarok and Guardians starting to meld together into one big giant colourful Jack Kirby pot, and then you have the Earth adventures, which look very dour. They've never really captured my imagination, to be honest. Unless we're talking about Black Panther, which is one of the reasons why I like that so much. But in the case of DC, they're really trying to distinguish between these characters and set up their own little worlds instead of focusing so much on bringing all of these characters together in a one big universe, because they flopped at that, so they might as well go down a different route. Although the success of this route is yet to be seen, we are seeing mixed results when it comes to this new direction that DC is going in. I mean, there's definitely success stories here with Aquaman and with Joker, but then less so with Shazam. We'll see how Wonder Woman 2 does. And in the case of Birds of Prey, unfortunately, it's looking like a bit more of a Shazam story than it is an Aquaman and Joker story. So overall, I did have a fun time with this film, but I wasn't overly impressed. I wasn't gobsmacked by it. I definitely think, again, the confusion surrounding this film was a part of that, and I think it was a mistake making this a Birds of Prey film before we even got a solo Harley Quinn film. And I also think the whole confusion around the name is just a reflection of how the studio didn't really know what they wanted to do with these female characters. They just knew they wanted a female-led film, but that's not enough. You need to really establish who these characters are. You need to really give them time to shine, and I feel like the film fails to do so, despite the fact that the actresses do a good job portraying the characters that they have to work with. So as a result, I'm going to be giving Birds of Prey, or whatever this film is called, a 6 out of 10. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys what my thoughts are on Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey in the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn, whatever this is called, it's time for you guys to let me know what your thoughts on the film are down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.